Hi there, I'm filming here a bit of an overview by way of introduction to a game of Lords of the Spanish Main. Colonization, piracy and skullduggery in the 17th century Caribbean. It's by Sierra Madre Games. It's for 2 to 8 players. Approximately 3 hours playing time. I'd say probably a bit longer than that generally. Each player represents a historical individual in the year 1600 and attempts to make his or her fortune in the Spanish Main. So you can see piracy is going to be a theme, but also just general kind of thievery is the thing. I'm going to start the introduction like this. I'm standing on a stool. We're high up here looking down, and I'll set up for 4 players. So there's a player mat here, a player mat here, here and here. And you can see the top of a player mat here, and then kind of the bottom of one's here. And this player mat's partly under the deck and things that are laid out. Just it's more convenient space-wise for me that way. This is the map board, and you have Hispaniola here, Cuba, the Yucatan, Sierra Madre, Honduras, what's that one, Panama, Nueva Granada, Venezuela, Nova Andalusia, and then you've got the Windward Islands and the Leeward Islands here. And these are shoals, and I'll zoom in a little bit to show you the map better. Then essentially what you're going to do is you're trading and or pirating. Everybody comes in here and you run various fleets of a few ships and colonies, and then you have and then special like powers. What you want to do is you want to come in here with your fleets. You will stop somewhere, trade with a colony, and then you have to move off on one of these red arrows with all your goods. Now these white arrows show the wind direction, so you cannot, for example, if you come on here, you cannot go that direction against a white arrow. So there's only certain ways you can move around on the map. Again, you see you go here. If you're here, you cannot go into here, so you have to go around here. Now this is very important, because what's also going to happen is you can see where the skull and crossbones are. These are potential pirate hideouts. And so if I say come in, I trade with a colony here, and then I move off through here that way, then if there's any pirate here in Tortuga, he will say, haha, I'm trying to interdict ye, and there could be a sea battle, or he will just pull over, and you might give him some of your gains. If not, if you refuse, then he might fight. And so that's how it works. Then you have there's always one regular character in the game, and this character is represented by a card. So everything's represented by cards and or tents. We'll get to that in a minute. So this character is the Madre de Guadalcazar de Cordoba, essentially. So he's in Santo Domingo in Hispaniola. That's here, and that's where he's situated. He is Spanish, he's Catholic, and this essentially determines turn order. And he has established a tobacco plantation. Now he also has a special power card. They call them mordidas. Mordida is Spanish for little bite, so it's essentially like bribery and corruption type stuff. So he can choose to pay a gold to do these various things. 3 gold, 6 gold. This one's very important. This one is any fleet up 1. Now what happens is that let me zoom out. This guy is sort of in charge of the region so far as Spain is concerned. He starts at level 3. Now, oops, an interruption, hang on. Okay, where was it? Yes, so you can see that the player mat's divided into 3 sections down in the bottom half. And this is where you're going to put your colonies and your fleets. So the Cordoba represents a colony as well as the man. And he starts at size 3, which is the biggest. Everybody else, every other player character has a fleet. And they will start at size 1. Now, using that his Mordida ability that we saw here, if he pays 6 gold, he can put anyone's fleet up a size. And you're going to want to do that because it becomes more powerful. You can carry more stuff for trade and for gold, and that's how you win the game, by filling your coffers with gold. And you can also add soldiers and go privateering or even turning pirate with such. So there's a lot of stuff written on the player mats. Now this is all helpful stuff. This tells you how sea battles work, and these are all summary of unit actions. But you don't need to sort of digest all of that. Once it's just reminders. Then you also have sequence of play. This is where you put your Mordida cards. So there's Casa de la Contrazione, the House of Contracts, goes there. And then you also, each player has their little tent that represents them. That goes in the year box. So here we have one, and you have 16x0 all the way up to 16x9. So each of those represents a year. And then here you have the decks for the game, and there's 10 cards in each deck. So each year you're going to turn one of those cards over, and potentially someone can buy it in auction, and they will put it here on the capitalization track. They have to pay money for it until it matures, and then they can bring it into play either as a colony or fleet, or put it in their Mordida, their special power slot. You can have any 2 at any one time, but no more than that. Now, there's 2, so you start in 1600, you'll go through 2 decks there of 10 cards each, no problem. And then each of these, you also have event cards, and it's completely randomly where they are distributed. So if at any time in one of these 3 decks or decades, an event card is drawn, the game ends. So you don't know exactly when it's going to happen. The last game I just played ended in the middle of this deck, so we had 25 years of play. But you could go all the way up, as you can see, to 50 years or thereabouts. Now the game has lots of cards. There's all these are not in play. So as with all Phil Eklund's games, at least the ones I've played, like Lords of Sierra Madre and Pax Porfiriana, you have a big selection of things that could happen, but you will only ever do sort of up to 2/3 or half of them each game, so you're never quite sure how it's going to play out. So exciting stuff, and each card is packed with, I'll show you some in a minute, packed with historical information, and indeed the rule book goes is quite slim. There's it's quite sort of densely written, but it's clearly written and not hard to grasp what they mean. Although the concepts are a bit strange, so there's a little steep. It's a short but a steep learning curve to get into the game. They do give a whole 1.5 page example of play, which is a definite help. And then the rest, you have 2 pages on these game characters. So here's so you got the Marquis de Cordoba there, and the others background history on them. Then you've got all these end notes relating to the game, kind of like designer's notes of why there's this rule in the game and so forth. Now you can play 8 characters, so you've got 8 player mats. You have 8 characters. I'm just playing 4. I'll show you 4 of the ones that aren't in play. So here you have Peter Stuyvesant. Obviously, they founded that line. At least founded the Tobacco Empire, I guess dating from this time. You have Sir Walter Raleigh, you have the Duke of Lerma, and you have Cardinal Richelieu. So these four, I except for him, I played these three and the Duke in the last game I played. You can see that meant that I had a Spanish, a English and a French player as well as another Spanish player, but the Spaniards will play against each other. I also had a Protestant against three Catholics. When the game starts, all nations are at peace and nobody's a pirate, but a little privateering can go on. You can kind of force somebody to pay you some money, but unless you actually, if they hand it over, okay, you're just a privateer. But if they don't hand it over and you go to fight them, you turn pirate, and then no more trading for you, except with countries, colonies of your own country. So what's on these? Well, this represents how long it takes to mature. So if at any time this card is disrupted, when a card is disrupted, it goes down here in the mercenary deck, and that means it comes out for auction in the next auction round. So if your player character can get disrupted, you're still playing as the character, but his fleet is disrupted, and only you can bid on that. But then it will go back, and if we start here, it go 1, 2, 3, 4, because it's a 4-year maturation. It takes 4 years to mature, and all those 4 years you're going to play a gold until we reach that point, and then it comes back out, and you'll stick it back down in your unit area. Here determines turn order. The crown number determines turn order. So basically, the lower crown number goes first, except in bidding except in special powers and mordida, which is the higher crown number, goes first. And that this player de Cordoba, called the treasure player, always goes first in mordida. So everybody has a different number, and every card has a different number, and you can choose. So say if you have a few colonies with higher number crowns, he could choose to go in the order of one of his colonies, instead of, probably he would be last every turn otherwise with that number. And then you also have, if you have a fleet card, which is shown by the diamond symbol, this is how good your fleet is. A is best. So, for example, Sir Walter Raleigh's not so great. Q. The Duke of Lima, his fleet were the worst. Z. We have Francis Drake in playing this game, and he's on D. So he's going to be best, and that is important in naval battles. And then you also have the galleon design. This has 3 masts, which means it can carry up to, it can be a 3-size fleet, and then it can carry 3 soldiers and 3 gold, which is gained in trading. There are some that come out of the deck that are only 2-masted barks, and they can carry either gold or soldiers, but not both. Okay, so what else to explain? Yes, so each character, apart from their sort of turn record tent, they also have another tent. They have a selection of 3 or more tents with their name on it. And that will be placed on the board when, if say they take this colony here in Caracas, that is marked there, so we know that is their colony. And the unit card will be in the unit box. And the tent is a reminder of whose colony that is. So there are some other tents in the game. You have fort tents, so you can They take 3 years to mature, so that's going to cost you 3 gold and 3 years to get it out. But then you can place it on a colony, and then that colony can never be sacked. If it's sacked, it's disrupted, so it goes back for auction and you lose everything on it. It could be depleted, it could be attacked and have stuff stolen, but it will not be removed off your, barring some other accident, off your player sheet. Then there's also mill. Some colonies that have a red number. We saw his one there has a red background, and there was another one here. No, wasn't there? Okay, so you have a red background to the maturation date. That indicates it can have a mill. And if you put a mill, that just indicates kind of like upgrading, then that colony can gain double in any trade it makes. Then you also have pirate tents. So if you have turned pirate, you are marked as a pirate. As I said, you can't trade except with your own nation. And then finally, all important treasure tents. So this is treasure worth 25 gold. Each player will start with 5 gold. And the last game I played, one of the players gained 49 gold. And that was with one of these treasure tents. So apart from these, it was a steep struggle to earn as much gold in individual trading as it is as you get from one of these treasure tents. And what does that represent? Well, I said earlier, but this fellow is the treasure player, so he's in charge of the Spanish Main, and there's tons of gold being gathered from the Americas, and that is gathered here and then sent back to Spain every year. In the game, it happens in the 5th year. The treasure flotilla sails in the middle of the decade. There are options to have it of treasure going out every year, in which case these will represent 10 instead of 25 gold each. But basically what's going to happen then is that when the treasure sails, you normally, I think you get 4, yes, you have 4 treasure ports on the map. So you have the pirate ones we saw, then also at Cartagena, Portobello, San Juan de something, and Havana. They will get one of these treasure tents worth 25 gold, and then the treasure player, he can pay for his Mordida, his special power, to determine who's going to be given the honour of carrying that gold. And so anyone who, if you're a pirate, you quickly become a pirate, and you'll come on, pick up the gold and sail it off to Spain. Now probably you're going to take 2 of these into your hold, so you're going to have to be at least a size 2 unit fleet to do that, and typically you'll give 1 to de Cordoba and take 1 yourself. So you can see the treasure player gets very rich every year, every 5th year, and the others can gain some of that, but they have to split it out between themselves. So it's a very asymmetrical game in the sense that this player is going to have the leading goal very easily, and these ones are going to have to work with and against him, and with and against each other to win themselves. The game I just played, he had 50 gold, so 2 treasure tents, and this fellow had 1 treasure tent and 24 gold, so 49, and this fellow was 1 gold behind. Poor old Drake, who I had down here, was about 35 treasure. So it was a close game, and this fellow did win, so he's definitely the one to beat. But you also have to work with him, and he has to work with the others, because they all start with a fleet and he doesn't. He just has a colony. So he needs their fleets to send the gold, unless he can get a fleet himself. But none of the fleets that come out of the deck here are as strong as these player fleets. So he needs them, and they need him, and they're fighting against each other. That's one of the great things of the game. So last thing perhaps to mention with the player characters, and you have this on both the colonies. Let's see, so that's a colony, and there's on the left and a fleet on the right. You put them on in their unit size areas depending on how big they are. So at the start these are 1, this one's 3. This way up to denote that it's earned no gold. Now if, say, this fleet sailed over to here and traded with it, he would earn 1 gold and he would earn 1 gold for the trade. So they both gain from it. Now if this fellow was... And now this fellow's size 3, so potentially he could trade 3 gold. This fellow's only size 1, so this fellow could trade with all 3 of these guys and end up earning 3 gold, and they will each earn 1. If this guy was bigger, obviously he could get 2 or so forth, and they would move up. So that's how you trade. Now you have here a pirate deck and a treasure deck, and what that means is that, as I said, if somebody turns what's called privateer, at the start of your individual turn you can say, okay, my fleet's going to go privateer, and then you go and hide in one of these places. You secretly choose one of these pirate locations, and then you can intercept other ships, as I said, or go and raid colonies and so forth. And if you actually, it ends in an actual fight rather than just like, give me your money, oh okay, here you are. You will become pirate. So you can run around extorting goods and gold and not actually turn pirate. But you're if the treasure player has privateers, they will hide in the treasure zones as well. And then they can also, there is a variant where the treasure tents, when they appear on that 5th or whenever turn, they will appear here, and so they can be attacked and taken away by pirates as well. So you might want to also defend them with privateers too. So I think that's enough on the background. Let's start with the gameplay. So in play at the moment we have, as we saw, Francis Drake. We have this Corland Merchant Marine, very interesting character. He's godson of James I of England. This is a tiny duchy or something in, I think they say it's now Latvia. But he raised one of the biggest fleets in the world at the time, and so became a major player in this area. But obviously it just disappeared into obscurity sometime after these 1600s, no not when. So that's one of the other players. And then the fourth one here, these are these buccaneers, Jean de Vasseur, Brethren of the Coast. I believe the history of him was that he was an engineer sent out by the French to deal with a pirate stronghold, and he ended up taking over the stronghold, fortifying it even better, being an engineer himself, and sort of commanded this gathering of buccaneers or pirates called the Brethren of the Coast. So, but you know, he starts out just as an innocent trader. He can turn privateer and or pirate as soon as he likes. The last of the components I just mentioned to you are, we have these two. So these are used in sea battles. It's interesting how it works. Essentially, each person secretly chooses one of these options, and then they compare them. So you only have 4 options. You can choose to, you can choose to seize the weather vane, so to get upwind of your opponent, the most advantageous position. You can fire off a broadside, you can go for boarding, or you can try and flee. And then you can simultaneously enact out what happens because of that. So now, if I had chosen to fire a broadside and I have the weather vane, so I had seized the weather vane in a previous round, then if my opponent has more ships, I do K, which is I kill an enemy soldier. But if he doesn't have more ships, I'd kill 2 enemy soldiers. And so, like I said, on one of these fleets, you can have, if it's in size 1 unit, you can have 1 soldier. Up here, you could have up to 3 soldiers. And with these fleets, not the barks, but these galleons, you could also have 3 gold from trade or robbery. But anyway, so so that can happen with broadsides. If I get an X result, both sides lose a soldier. So if you have the better seamanship, that number Francis Drake had the D, you remember, then if opponent has more ships, you both lose 1. Otherwise, so even if you don't have the weather vane, but you have better seamanship, you get a good result. If you have no advantages, not better seamanship, not better the weather vane, it's X or K, same as that, in fact. You can go for boarding, so you could both lose a soldier or no effect. Or, this is joy of joys, you get, if opponent has no soldiers and you have the weather vane and you manage to board them, you gain a prize. The enemy loses a size, so their ship will go down 1, their fleet rather, and you gain a size, so then you can go up. So instead of him paying 6 gold to boost up your fleet, you can capture enemy ships that way. And if you try to flee, the battle might end, or you might have some deleterious effect. And in these, you can seize the weather vane. You might gain the weather vane, which is then going to put you in this column for your next result. So, and the important thing here, if a fleet with no soldiers loses a man, it loses a side instead. So you could lose 3 soldiers and then 1, 2, and then on the 3rd you'll be disrupted and go in here. And I did have that where a player character's fleet was disrupted and it set him back highly. That was Francis Raleigh, and he came last in the game. So sea battles are costly, and they are few and far between, but very dramatic and exciting when they do happen. I must mention, before I forget, that there is an errata sheet. That is all it is, and that these are clarifications and or additions, and then these are optional rules. So there's only really that had to be added to the rules. There's also, I'd recommend going to Rick Helly's site. I can't remember the name offhand. So he has notes and exceptions. So because there's quite a lot of things that can happen, and a lot of it is marked on these, but that's not all of it. It helps to have this kind of like player aid summary, and then also an index for individual special things that can happen. And there's also on Board Game Geek, there's another key concepts quick reference, but that isn't as useful as Rick's that I've found. Now, the last final thing I should mention, and the most important thing, is this is essentially a negotiation game. So deals, let's move this down closer. Deals are made and will be broken, and that is the way it goes. The only deal that is binding is with the treasure tents. So if you're carrying a treasure tent for the Duke of Cordoba, or whatever his name is, you must give it to him when it reaches Europe. You can't not give it, but otherwise no deal is binding. And essentially what's going to happen is things like, because he can make a fleet bigger, so he can get some ships from somewhere and rustle up a crew for you, it costs him 6 gold. So typically he'll say, okay, you pay the 6 gold and pay me another 1 or 2 or whatever gold, and you give me your Mordida card, or Mordida, or something like that. These things will happen. And also typically with these games is you can trade with yourself. So if you have a colony and a fleet, you can trade. Your colony and your fleet can trade. You will gain both into your coffers at the end of the year. But then obviously somebody's probably going to come along and disrupt that. And you can also, I found, because you can combine fleets. No, because in the sea battle, one clever thing you can do is if you have a smaller fleet that comes out from the deck and you have your player fleet, you can have them enter a fight, and you're obviously playing both sides on your choices, so you can make yourself win. The lower fleets are going to be disrupted, so it will go for no, sorry, the lower fleet, because you can only have I got an example? Okay, I can't find one quickly, and I don't want to spoil the surprises for me. But essentially, only things with maturation that mature can can come out of this mercenary deck when they have been disrupted. The smaller fleets with the barks rather than the galleons cannot. So that card's out of the game, but you have brought your fleet size up. So it's a bit of a sort of gamey tactic, but you can say simulates them actually just joining hands rather than having a sea battle. It's just mechanically you have to go through it that way. So without further ado, let's start the game so you get an idea. There's a sequence of play. The first thing you do, and I haven't mentioned everything, but you'll see it coming into play now, is you turn a card over. What's the first card? Now, before we get into that, we look at this. We say, there's a black spot. So every card in the deck has a black spot. And then we check here to see the results. So you can see there's 10 different black spots ranging from cholera, pearl bed exhaustion, volcanoes, earthquakes, hurricanes, etc. to this one, mutiny. And it says here how many of them are. So, for example, that 20% of these are cholera and 18% of them have mutiny. Each privateer and pirate loses a soldier and is disrupted if it has no soldiers. Each immature card or tent is advanced 1 year. So if I was maturing a card on this column, it would go up. That's not the case here, and no one's a privateer or pirate yet, so that is irrelevant for us at the start, fortunately. Then the next thing we do is we go to capitalization, where you'd pay for cards on here. We don't have any, and so then we go to skullduggery. Now, skullduggery is where the Mordida comes in. This is the only Mordida special power card we have in play. So, and he hasn't got 6 gold. Everyone starts with 5, so he can't perform a bit of skullduggery at the beginning. And I've forgotten to lay out the go. And there's no gold supplied with the game. Use what you like. I've got these beads. So there's no skullduggery going to happen this first year. His other options are he can seize a disrupted Spanish card. So if a Spanish card had gone into here, he could just take it. That's his. Flotta, that's fleet. On a treasure year, designate the fleets that can pick up the treasure. So I spoke about that. He has to pay a gold to do that, but that's the way it goes. Or he can Spanish attack, destroy an immature non-Spanish colony. Because he's Spanish, he can spend 3 just to destroy a non-Spanish colony. That is a great threat to hold over any other player. So none of that's happening right now. So we move to the next stage, and that is the auction. So we start only with 5 gold, and it suggests you only need 12 per player. I probably needed a little bit more than that in the last game I played, but I think there's going to be a lot more negotiation back and forth. Obviously not. I kind of randomise it somewhat, as I also kind of just intuitively lead to conclusions about who's going to do what when I'm playing solo, but you don't need tons of coins or whatever to play the game. So who do we have? We have Maurice of Nassau Orange, Stadtholder of Holland and Zeeland. So it's a Mordida card. It matures immediately. It's a low crown value, but Mathematician Stevin on the art of ballistics. So for 2 gold, you can destroy a fort defending the battle. Now that is interesting. That is great, because in the last game I had, if you had a fort, that colony was safe forever. It might be depleted, but it would never be disrupted and you would lose it. Not so in this game. Admiralty of Amsterdam. Increase any fleet size by 1. Fantastic. 4 gold instead of his 6. So already he's weaker than in the last game I played. where a card like this only came out late in the game, so people were relying on the Duke for building up their fleets, and he needed big fleets to carry treasure so he could get more treasure. 4 gold, Gomerus, Synod of Dort, Religious War. Sees a disrupted Dutch or Protestant card. Interesting, so that is great. So we would have some quite fierce bidding on that, but also characters don't want to run out of money too quickly. So I think what I'm going to do is I will go around and I'll say, so he definitely bids 1, he bids 1, he bids 1, he bids 1. So I'll just see if anyone rolls a 6, they're going to go higher than 2. No, and so then roll to see who. So everyone goes 2, which means for bidding, ties are resolved by religion, nationality, or higher crown order. So he's got, this is Dutch. Have we got any Dutch fellows in play? No, so no one's going to, and it's not a religious card, it doesn't have a religion, so the highest crown order, that would be him. So he will automatically gain it on 2. Now, and that is not good, because then he's going to have that absolute monopoly, so one of these is going to have to go up to 3. And it's going to be this fellow. So this fellow will take that for 3 gold, and I put this here for the bank, convenient place. So that immediately goes into his one of his 2 more deeders there, and he has that available immediately. But the skullduggery happened just before this, so he won't be able to use it this year. That was the auction. If it was an event card, we would do the results of the event. Now we go to unit actions. So this is where the characters perform their activities, and that goes in low crown order to high. Now El Draco's 25, he's the lowest crown order. No, he's 14. Okay, so it's going to be the Brethren of the Coast going first. Now there's nothing to do because there's no one to trade with. He might, you could potentially attack another, or put yourself in a privateering position and wait for another fleet to attack it, but you won't just go and attack a fleet for nothing. It has to be moving through here, trading, or perhaps searching for another privateer. So nothing's happened there, nothing happened there, nothing happened there, and he doesn't have enough gold. But what could happen is that one of these characters early makes an agreement with him and says, look, the treasure's going to come out in the 5th year. You and me, we'll work together. Something else that could happen. Okay, this fellow, he spent 3 gold, but there's no threat to him at the moment. You can put one of your coins, so you can base, you can outfit by putting a soldier in on your fleet. You could also base a privateer, choose one of those bases. No. If you had soldiers, you could disband them and you get the gold back for use. Then you would select a merchant route and trade or be interdicted. You could raid a colony or a treasure city. Yes, that's what everyone can do now. Let's do that. So this fellow is going to, because he has no fleets, he's going to equip himself as a privateer. I'm going to put him into these 3 points are the best, because you have to go off back to Europe with a fleet from one of these points. These could be useful later, and only one privateer can be in each point. So he's going to take New Providence. No one else knows that. We put that under there. Now, if another privateer, if another fellow decides to go well, hang on, I'll get to that in a minute. And he's going to put a soldier on there. So he's outfitted and based himself, and then he's going to do a land raid. So he will raid. Oh no, he needs to have a treasure city in the same district. No. So he just says, okay, I'm going to raid the treasure city at Cartagena. There's no protection there, and there's no protection. So there's no protection against it. So for this, what would happen is that he could have put a soldier in one of these places, but he hasn't had his go yet. So each side will exchange soldiers, and the raider steals 1 gold from the coffers of the treasure player for each surviving soldier. He doesn't have a soldier, he has one, and so he will take 1 gold from him straight away into his coffer. Now that's the action, that's all he can do. So now we go to this player down here, and why has he only got 4 gold? He should have 5. Okay. What he can do is now he could say, right, I'm going to go privateer, and he could equip his ship with 1 fellow, and then he can hunt through here, and because he's only the second person to do this, he will know where this fellow is based. So then he'll say, aha, the New Providence card is not in here. So I'm going to base myself in wherever, Rautan, let's say, and then I'll go and raid New Providence. And then he can attack that fellow and gain some gold back from him. And the way this could work is that because they have 1 soldier each, because they're only 1 unit size, neither's going to win. But what would happen is he could say, look, I'll pay for 3 gold, you pay 3 gold, and I'll perform my mordida and put you at 1 size. But of course that skullduggery has happened this turn, so we can't do it at the moment. So that's the sort of thing can happen next turn. It's not happening now. So he's just putting a soldier on his fleet and biding his time. And I think Francis Drake is going to do the same. It doesn't really hurt to do that. No, Francis Drake is going to keep himself... he should have been next, then him. And then he's going to keep himself open, so he's got all his gold for bidding. Which indicates he's not really going to have a... He's not going to be fighting and pirating from the get-go. Okay, and then finally this fellow... Well... Oh, I forgot. Yeah, we do have a colony. Should have marked it on the map. So, these 2 fellows, in fact, can trade. So, in which case, because we have a privateer on the map, players could do something like these 2 could collude, and one could become a privateer and find out where he is. Then the other one can go and trade. But then how do they divide 1 gold? So El Draco goes next. He's going to outfit his ship, and he's going to go and trade with the Marquis. So that we turn his up 1, and the Marquis turns up 1, so they're both earning 1 gold. And then you could go this way or that way. So he can either go via Tortuga or San Martin district. And as we know that our privateer is in New Providence, so that's okay. Either way, Francis Drake gets off with that. And then the Duke of Courland, Merchant Marine, will do the same, so they will trade. So the Duke's on 2, and he will go off the same way because he knows that is clear. And then this fellow hasn't got anyone to trade with and no fleet, so that is that. So that's the end of the unit actions. Then we go to the upgrades. So now you can choose to upgrade. And I think this fellow is going to do it straight away. He's going to put a fort on his hacendado. So he takes a fort tent and it matures in 3 years. So it goes 3 years ahead on his track there. Cost him nothing to do that. It will cost him the capitalization. There's no upgrades that have matured, and there's no cards on tracks that have matured. And so that is the end of the turn, and everyone advances their turn marker 1 space and or year. Oh, and what I forgot to do, sorry, at the end of the unit actions, we reset the profit levels. Now this was a clarification of the rules or a rules change. So you don't gain the profit immediately. So we reset it before we do that upgrade. So now he has 2 marked here. So we reset his card down to 0. And out of the bank we put 2 gold in his coffer. And then each of these fellows also reset down to 1, and they get 1 gold each. So, and then we've finished the year. So the net gain in that year was, he's on 6 gold now. He's on 2 gold, and he's declared himself as a privateer, but he's also got this nice Mordida card. He can build up his fleet. And these fellows have each got 5 gold and 1 soldier on their fleets. And that is it. So then we go to the next. Yeah, that's how quickly the years can go. Really, it's the game's only going to go slow when you're haggling and parleying with each other. So we again have mutiny. Now that's not so good because he's going to lose a soldier, cursing his decision. That's 1 gold essentially gone. Then we go to the capitalization. So he has to play a gold for capitalization of that. Then we go to skullduggery. Now if he had 2 more gold in here, he could build his fleet up. He doesn't. He's got 6, and these have got some. And Francis Drake and him give a nod and a wink, and they pay 3 gold each for him to activate his Mordida to any fleet up 1 size. So he's probably going to be the designated treasure fleet guy. In fact, both of you want more than 1, or he does, to earn as much gold as possible, because it's best for him if he spreads it among different players. So each, 3 players might get 1 gold tent each, but he will get 3 tents himself. So the players have to decide whether they want to do that or not, benefiting him, but they're competing with their opponent. Do you let your opponent get 25 gold and when you decline it? Difficult decision. Okay, so that's all the skullduggery. And don't forget that his Mordida enables him to destroy that fort. It's going to cost him 2 gold, but there's still that in the offing. Okay, so now we go to the auction, and what do we have here? We have a French card, it's Catholic, and this is a colony, so it's not a diamond. So it takes 2 years to mature, it's tobacco. So some events will increase demand, so you'll earn double on certain products. And it's red, so it can be upgraded. Any colony can have a fort, but only some can have mills. And it's in Hospital in Espanola. So Espanola is, where is it again? Here, Espanola. And Hospital is here. So it's in the shoals. Now, galleons cannot go through those shoals. So that is going to be safe from piracy and from him, but not from weaker ships, but still. So that is going to be a good, and it can be upgraded. That is a great potential colony. So that's going to be some fierce biddings. Now, these two have spent a lot of gold. They've only got 2 each. So Cool and Merchant Marine have 5 gold, sitting pretty. He's got 2. He's saving up to build up. So is anyone going to go to 2? But he's French, So he would win on the tie because it's a French card. So if he bids 2, he's going to have to bid 3 to get it. If he bids 2 though, he might get it and not particularly want it, but no, I think everyone would want that. So he's going to bid 2, which forces this Corland Merchant Marine to bid in 3. Still they get it. So that's going 2 years ahead. And now we go to unit actions. So they were first. He's going to stay as he is, and in fact he's going to he undeclares himself as a privateer, so he's not doing any naughty business this year. I'm a normal trader, me, and then he's going to trade with the Hacendado there. It's very happy to do, both of them happy to do that. Then Drake is also trading now. Now Drake's gone up to size 2, so he can trade 2 with this fellow, and this fellow agrees to that, at least this time. So now he's maxed out. He can't trade anymore because he's maximum 3, as they all are, if they're unit size 3. So this fellow has got no one to trade with. Poor old chap. He could elect to go privateer. But and why not? To spite him, because he could have saved him a trading. He says, okay, I'm going to raid one of your treasure cities. Give me a gold or else I'll... So he bases himself as a privateer. It's a bit of a risk in case there's a mutiny. Okay. And he claims the gold off him. Now he could just give him the gold and then he stays as a privateer. If he doesn't give the gold, this guy's going to have to go pirate. Full on pirate. And once you're pirate, that's it. So he doesn't give it to him. Why would he? This guy doesn't actually want to go pirate. He wants to be able to trade, especially because he's got a colony coming in and it's not from his nation. So I think that's interesting. I wonder how many colonies are actually from Courland in the game and in history. So I'm not sure. He's probably not going to want to be a pirate soon. So he's left out in the cold this turn. So that's the end of the unit actions. And we reset the profit levels. So Drake gets 2 gold. The Brethren of the Coast get 1 gold. And the Hacendado gets 3 gold. Okay, and then anybody initiating upgrades? Yes, he's going to upgrade this pretty quickly because there could be a raid overland. If the Hacendado puts soldiers here, he can raid overland from there. I think hadn't done that before. If not, if he gets a heathen colony, they can raid. They just have soldiers. They don't bother trading. They trade to gain soldiers and thereafter they raid. So anyway, for protection I think it's wise because that's going to be a great mill. And oops, pirate, no, I want fort, and then after that he'll make it a mill. So that's 1, 2, 3 ahead. No maturation, and so that's the end of that turn. So everyone advances a turn, and I'll do one more turn, then we'll call it a day for now. Okay, so turn the card, and we have smallpox. Each heathen colony, okay, that's like natives or so forth, loses a size and is discarded if it goes to size 0. Okay, so colonists are okay, European colonists. So capitalization. So he's paying 1, Corlin's paying 1, and that's it. And Skullduggery. Well, the Brethren hasn't got 4 gold yet. He doesn't need to do any Skullduggery. And he could bring Francis Drake up to 3, but that's really not in his benefit, because if Francis Drake's carrying 3 treasure, how are they going to divide the 3rd? I mean, they could say, okay, it's a 20-year deal, but Francis Drake could always renege on the just decide not to carry it in the 2nd year after getting 2 the first, or something like that. Or Francis Drake could get 1 the first, and then he's going to stay around for the 3rd. But what happens if he's not strong enough? No, he wouldn't agree to that. Okay, so now we go to the auction. It's a silver mine. It takes 3 years to mature. It's Spanish and Catholic, and it's in Cuba. That's it, but it can only bring out 2 at most until you upgrade it with a mill. A mill's kind of generic name for an upgrade, so that's pretty good. But people running low on money except for him and Drake, so they are both competing on this. And because it's Spanish, he's going to win the ties. So if he bids 2, say, Drake has to bid 3. That's a pretty hefty whack. But he's always getting money for trade, so he's always going to be able to. So Drake's not probably, he can beat him now. Doesn't want him to get too far ahead, so he's going to bid 3. Is he going to bid 4 for it? No, he only has to bid 3 for it. And then Drake would have to bid 4. So he can always beat him. Will Drake bid 4, which is taking all of his gold? Yeah, he's going to do it. So he has 1 to 3. He's going to take it for 4. No, so Drake takes it for 4 gold. The Duke decides it's too expensive for that. 1, 2, 3. It goes 3 years on. Okay. Capitalization. Did I already pay for that? Yes, I did do that. Sorry, we didn't do Skullduggery. Capitalization, auction, and now unit actions. So he trades. He's cursing his slow start. That piracy was silly at the beginning. He's basically 2 gold behind because he lost 1 to mutiny. Drake doesn't want to set off the ire of the Courland, and no, he doesn't care. He's taking 2. They got their nice agreement going. He's giving him 2. The Duke of Courland once more is left out in the cold. Nothing else is happening, no raids or anything, so we reset profit levels. Brethren get 1. The Duke gets 3, and Raleigh gets 2. And the Courland Merchant Marine are cussing badly, but they're looking forward to their tobacco coming online. And that is the end of that turn and the end of this video, and I will probably record another video of play, just folks that might find it interesting to see what comes out in this game as it goes on. Not this game necessarily specifically, but the Lords of the Spanish Main game. Over and out.